Nicknamed the Emerald City, Seattle may be the most beautiful city in the whole country, and skyline, as well as a few things that make that city unique. Now let's meet Seattle. I always like to start by exploring how a city wound up being where it is today. Seattle is located on an isthmus between Lake Washington and the Puget Sound, making it one of only two major U.S. cities situated on an isthmus. The Seattle area has been inhabited for thousands of years, and the name Seattle was actually the name of the chief of the Duwamish tribe during the time of European settlement in 1851. Similar to its Canadian neighbor city of Vancouver, Seattle was initially a logging town. In 1861, the University of Washington was established in Seattle, which was a very significant moment for the future development of the city. The arrival of the railroad led to Seattle replacing San Francisco as the primary transportation point for Northern Pacific trade, which resulted in explosive growth. The city's population went from around 3,500 in 1880 to over 80,000 just 20 years later. Today, Seattle has one of the busiest container ports in all of North America, and the city has grown to have a population of around 750,000. This makes it the 18th largest city in the country, and Seattle has a metro population of just over 4 million. This makes it the 15th largest metro in the country, being just smaller than Detroit and larger than Minneapolis. Seattle has the 9th largest economy in the country, and some of the most recognizable companies headquartered in the Seattle metro include Amazon, Boeing, Costco, Microsoft, Starbucks, REI, Nordstrom, and Alaska Airlines. Seattle's metro has just shy of 30 colleges and universities, the most notable being my dad's alma mater, the University of Washington. Call me shallow, but when it comes to cities, I think appearances matter, which is why evaluating a city's skyline is one of my favorite parts of making these videos. Seattle has one of the best skylines in the country. When I made a video on my favorite skylines in North America, Seattle ranked as the 5th best looking skyline on the continent for me. Taking into account the natural beauty surrounding the city, such as the looming Mount Rainier and the Olympic Mountains across the Sound, I think Seattle is the most beautiful city in the country overall. If you took the average height of Seattle's tallest 5 buildings, Seattle would be ranked as the 9th tallest skyline in the country. The tallest building in the city is the Columbia Center at 937 feet or 286 meters. It has more floors than any other building west of the Mississippi River. The most quintessential tourist attraction in Seattle is Pike's Place Market. It's the most visited destination in the city with more than 10 million visitors annually. It's one of the oldest continuously operated farmers markets in the country. What puts the market on the map for most people is the Pike's Place Fish Market, where they famously throw and catch slippery fish.
The first stop for most tourists is at Pike Place Fish Market. Made popular from shows like MTV's The Real World, this place has been throwing fish for decades. It's a fun highlight when people order to hear them calling out the fish and then throwing them back and forth, and it always generates a lot of buzz. There's even a sign at the store that says "Caution, low-flying fish."
It's funny how fast they clear out as soon as they throw the fish. There was about 100 people sitting around waiting to watch that.
The rest of the market is a collection of awesome neon signs, flower shops, seafood shops, and everything in between.
Sunday is a really busy day here, but it brings a lot of fun energy.
It's pretty surprising how big the market is, and there's a lot of stalls that you can walk around and see. Do note that many of them are a little bit more expensive than you'd anticipate, but it's worth it to have such a fun experience in the city.
Be sure to come out on the viewing platform behind Pikes before you leave. You can get some amazing views, and we can even see Rainier today.
A few more places that I love here are Beecher's Handmade Cheese, Rachel's Ginger Beer, and of course Piroshki, which was featured on No Reservations with Anthony Bourdain and has amazing baked goods. Oh, and of course there's the first location for one of those lesser known coffee shops.
This is the original Starbucks, but as you can see, there's probably 100 people in line or so, and it does not move very fast. If it's something you want to do, you should do it while you're here, but be prepared to wait.
Just down the ramp from the fish market is another iconic Seattle landmark, the colorful gum wall. It unintentionally started in the 90s and since then has grown piece by piece. It's estimated that over 1 million pieces of gum have been put on the wall since then.
Gum wall. Looks like we need to get some bubble gum.
The Gum Wall in Seattle is a polarizing tourist attraction that's been here since the 1990s. There's probably hundreds of thousands of pieces of gum here, and they actually did clean it once in 2015, but almost immediately it started getting gum back.
When it comes to unique aspects of Seattle, I have to start with the most iconic structure in the skyline, the Space Needle. The Space Needle was built in 1961 for the World's Fair the following year. At 605 feet, it was the tallest structure west of the Mississippi River when it was built. Today, it remains the primary symbol of the city and has an observation deck with a revolving restaurant at the top. The Space Needle is located on a 74-acre arts and tourism center known as Seattle Center, which has several unique museums and attractions.
Here's the United States. On the west coast is Washington State. The city of Seattle is right here, kind of in between all of this water. The Space Needle is right here. It was originally built for the World's Fair in 1962. It took 13 months to build. The first thing they did was dig a big hole to put the foundation. We want the tower to be as stable as possible. They poured 5,600 tons of concrete. This meant that when the tower was finished, the center of gravity would be underground. Now it's time to start building the structure. Construction finished just in time for the opening of the World's Fair. You have to remember that the 1960s was the space race, which eventually led to the first astronauts landing on the moon. The general public had their sights on the future and on space travel. This is why the top of the Space Needle is made to look like a flying saucer. But when you're up at the top, it's designed to make you feel like you are in the clouds floating above the city. While you're at the top, you can get a good view of the harbor, surrounding landscape, and of course, downtown Seattle. There's even a monorail that will take you there.
It's one of the most recognizable buildings in the world and a signature part of the Seattle skyline, the Space Needle.
The theme of the fair is set by the Space Needle.
At 605 feet tall, the iconic landmark was first built in 1962 for the World's Fair.
The Seattle World's Fair is underway.
The theme celebrating the age of space, and according to the Space Needle's Chief Operating Officer Karen Olson, it was constructed to symbolize just that.
The Space Needle was designed as a flying saucer on a stick. When they're building it, no one thought it was possible. People came down, they had picnics. It made the cover of Life magazine twice.
At the time, the Space Needle was considered an architectural feat, all built from start to finish in just 400 days.
They built it really quick. It took teams of engineers that worked tirelessly overnight to build the Space Needle in the first place. And now this renovation, history is repeating itself.
63 years later, yet again, construction crews are working overtime to complete a massive $100 million renovation of the popular tourist attraction. Major changes have already been made, including adding 176 tons of glass to the observation decks, giving visitors the feeling they're floating above the city. All part of the Space Needle's original design that never actually happened.
They envisioned floor-to-ceiling, floor-to-sky glass everywhere. But back in the day, they didn't have that much glass. They didn't have the technology. What we've done over the years is peel that away and really open up the view. And whenever there's structure that we can, we're replacing it with glass.
That includes converting the rotating restaurant into the world's first ever revolving glass floor.
This definitely isn't for someone who's scared of heights.
I know, isn't this amazing?
When you get to the top of the Space Needle, there are 2 floors, the first of which is open air with big windows that allow you to see out.
Shout out to the people who work at the Space Needle because this is the cleanest I've ever seen observation windows and it makes it great for pictures.
We actually got a really great day when we were at the Space Needle and you could see all the way to Mount Rainier out in the distance. It's such an iconic view to see the Seattle skyline with Mount Rainier, and it's not something that I see very often on my visits to Seattle, so I'm always excited whenever the mountain's out. When you finish the observation deck, you're going to want to head down 1 story to get to one of the world's only revolving glass floors.
There's the glass museum that we were just at. Pretty cool to see that from up here.
You probably don't want to do this if you're afraid of heights, but it's a slow rotation that takes about 45 minutes to make a full circle.
Seattle is the #1 city in the country for glass-blowing art, and at the feet of the Space Needle is the Chihuly Garden and Glass Museum. It showcases glass-blown artworks from Dale Chihuly, the largest being the 100-foot-long sculpture in the Glass House.
In 2012, We built the largest project that I've ever worked on. It's at the base of the Space Needle.
The Space Needle was intended in 1962 to be part of the Seattle World's Fair. The fair needed the Space Needle or something like it. It needed an icon. We look at it now and, it's very much a creature of its time. To me, the architects who worked on it were brilliant in their own way, and they came from a variety of perspectives. It's actually an example of a kind of collaborative design that actually worked, But there were critics of the architecture at the time. There were people who said, I sincerely doubt that 10 years from now anybody will really think this was a great idea. The fact is, when you look at it now, it's one of those things that just has an inevitability about it. It's still modern, it has character, it defines a city. I think it's typical for buildings to go through a kind of love affair phase, then you kind of fall out with it, and then you fall back in love. I mean, that can happen, and it certainly happened with the Eiffel Tower.
Chihuly Garden of Glass is the largest and most comprehensive exhibition of Dale's work. When visitors come and they enter the interior galleries, they start by seeing Dale's earliest work, the neon forest, the baskets in the northwest room, the Chihuly over Venice chandeliers, all the way through to Mille Fiori.
One of my favorite things is to design an exhibition. This exhibition, for the most part, I've selected installations, large-scale works. There's one or two exceptions where I've had individual objects put into one of the rooms, but mostly they're kind of architectural installations. Outside, there's a garden with 8 different exterior projects. And this is a culmination of all the best pieces that we've done over the years.
What's different about Chihuly Garden and Glass is that Dale had the opportunity to work with landscape architect Richard Hartledge and design a garden from the ground up. For us, before they started this project, the space was just a parking lot, but for Dale, it was a blank canvas.
All of that next to the Space Needle, my favorite building, and all of that in my hometown. It's just a great honor to do this project.
When our visitors walk through, it doesn't matter if they're 5 years old or 95 years old. They are filled with joy and with wonder and a sense of curiosity and delight in what they see. The colors, the forms, just the sheer scale of the exhibition. They leave here inspired.
Magical libraries. Prettier yard than Harvard Yard. Sailgating. Cutest school mascot. What's it like inside the
University of Washington?
Find out on this Campus Crawl.
We are now walking in the center of University of Washington, or as the students call it, UW. Right behind me right there is a world-famous library. In it has a reading room that's the size of an Amazon warehouse. It's huge. We will go check that out later. We are now walking through the most stunning and most beautiful part of UW campus, the Quad. This, in the spring, all these are cherry blossom trees, so it's gonna be all pink and green, very photogenic location. We are now at the Husky Stadium, the home of the Dogs. Let's go Dogs! This is one of the biggest stadiums. It holds 60,000 people, and on Husky game day, all the students have free tickets to the seating. Right behind me right there is the electrical engineering building where most people major if they want to work at the tech companies. And behind me this way is a fountain that is not on, but this fountain is one of the biggest ones I've ever seen. It is basically the dead center of University of Washington, and all around me are libraries, classrooms, and if you look down that way, you'll see an amazing view of the mountains. Behind me that way, you would be able to see a huge, beautiful mountain with snow glistening at the top. Right behind me is the administration building, but you know, why does the administration building look so nice? It looks like a castle. Everything at UW just works so well together. I like the way this school is built. We're now entering Susilo M. Allen Library. This is the most iconic building at the University of Washington because it features the infamous or famous Harry Potter room. Let's go check that out. We are now walking into the giant study hall in Susilo Library. And there's over 350,000 square feet of study space. I thought UC Berkeley's study hall was big until I saw this one. Like I could be like flying brooms all over the place. This place looks magical. On the weekends over here in this Susilo Library, it can definitely get a little bit crowded because there's a lot of tourists like me coming by. But on the weekdays, that's when this turns into the most studious space that you'll ever see. Everyone is studying here and you just feel so inspired to achieve your dreams.